Here's a long one. Nothing but net. Oh, my goodness. Didn't see that coming. I'm diddly dee.
Yeah. Welcome to another episode of All Nat, brought to you by OTS. I am your host, Natalie, and most people call me Nat. Today, I'm so delighted to welcome Shane Young to the show. If you are a member of NBA Twitter, participate in Twitter, follow NBA people, you have to know who Shane Young is. And if you're not following him, then you need to start because he is excellent. He gives pretty fair and balanced analysis. I think most Dub members of Dub Nation really like Shane. Some people have turned on him because he's went away from us a little bit and called players like Kawhi Leonard the best in the world. And, you know, he didn't have us as the favorites to win it all. But no, seriously, Shane is super great, like reasonable, has really good basketball takes and analysis. And so if you aren't following him, you should. If you aren't reading his writing, you should. He knows his stuff. He covers the league at large, but he's also an expert on some teams even more closely, like the Clippers. So that's why I'm having him on today. We're going to talk about some games coming up this week for the Dubs, and I'm so excited to welcome Shane to the show. So Shane, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been a long time coming. We talked about this, September? I think before we even launched the show. So thanks for having me. And that was my favorite intro so far out of all these podcasts I've done. So didn't have to do all that. Way too generous.
Well, I only tell the truth. I'm a truth teller. And I like to have people on the show whose content I enjoy. I like to introduce people to other people they may not be familiar with. So I appreciate you joining me and giving me your time, especially during the holiday week. And we'll make it worth your while and worth the while of my listeners. So thanks again.
Oh, no problem. And you know, if I must say, the schedule is going by so quickly that it's been no time to think. Like, how are we already 17? You know, some games in. It's kind of mind blowing how fast things go in the modern NBA.
I know. And even though it goes fast, not quick enough, because I know a lot of Warriors fans are frustrated this week because there's like 3 days between. We played who was our last game that we just played? The Raptors on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we play the Raptors on Sunday, and then we're not playing the Sixers until Wednesday. So everyone's like, what? Like, why do we have so many days off between games? But
teams will get like maybe 1 or 2 of these 3-day breaks, and you know, players love them if they're staying in their home market, you know, but if they're on the road, it kind of messes up there. You have to travel and then stay in hotels for a couple of those nights, you know. But,
yeah, have you asked players about it before? Is that what they usually tell you?
You know, just on the Clippers side, they enjoy the time off because, more importantly, because they get screwed in the scheduling because they are like the third tenant or fourth tenant in the Staples Center. So more likely than not, they only have one of these long breaks. So they value them whenever they can get them.
Got you. So Shane, what has been, I think, or I want to ask rather, what's been the biggest surprise to you so far for the NBA season?
The biggest surprise so far, it's definitely, I'm not sure if this might be a common thing that's been said on the show, but it's how down offense is right now. It's not, you know, and people can point, they always want to point to just the fouls or just the emphasis on, you know, not blowing every whistle that benefits, you know, grifters, as they like to call them. But I will say, I think that we are seeing an adjustment to that, and just in general, unlucky shooting, weird slumps for players, one that we'll get into soon, that might be snapping out of his. But, you know, just in general, I mean, wide open shots aren't being made for the most part. We're seeing, I think, an overcorrection in terms of, you know, the fans being allowed back in full capacity around the league. And that's kind of throwing people off and you wouldn't think that it would, because they've played in front of crowds their entire lives. You know, they've played in front of crowds. But I think last year we saw offense go to an all-time high because there was I like to believe it's because we had empty gyms, and it's just easier to kind of, not get distracted or not get as nervous. I feel like, especially for role players. So we're seeing that come back down to earth. But it's even worse than, I mean, now we're seeing teams scoring at levels that you would see in 2011, 2012. It's almost 2022. So I think offense being down, but other than that, if you want to point to some standout performances, or guys that are performing way better than I thought, I'm really interested in seeing what the Grizzlies do with Ja Morant. Ja's been a revelation this year just because he's taken the leap. So I mean, there's a lot you could go into with players that have stood out, but offense being down and some of these young guys in their third, fourth year making the jump, that's what I'm interested in.
Are you surprised to see a player like Julius Randle, who looks like maybe he's regressing back to, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say that. Maybe it's just like a few struggles, but he's not at least matching really what he was in his MIP year. Which I think most of us thought he took the jump last year. So do you think this is a regression, or do you think a player like him is going to get back to where he was last year?
Yeah, so I have a hard time when people say like, oh, Randall's gotten worse, or it's a regression. I simply think you hit a point where you go up so high, which he did last year, which all NBA, right? 13, I believe, or in the running for it. I think he made it. I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember,
I think he
but
made
doesn't
13.
Matter. He did well, and he got
he did
MIP.
well. Did great. Did great. It was one of the best forwards in the NBA last year. You could definitely say that. Expecting that to stay the same or get even better was, you couldn't ask for that. I think that it's a little bit, not so much regression, but the league caught up. The league is learning how to defend him better.
Okay.
Also, I think he benefited not a lot from the whistles, but he did get to the foul line a lot more as he elevated into this superstar version of himself. So that has kind of taken a toll as well. So I mean, when I looked at the numbers, was it last week? He was one of the worst mid-range shooters on moderate to high volume in the league so far. So maybe it's just shot selection that's not great right now. And the Knicks have had their struggles offensively, as we know. So I mean, I tend to believe that someone that has reached that peak that Randall did last year, he's in the prime of his career, hasn't had a major injury since his rookie year. I just believe that he'll be back on track. So I know people in New York would hate me for saying this, but I never believed that the Knicks were going to repeat the same level of play they did last year. I thought they were going to take a little bit of step back. So it's kind of what I expected. I don't see this as like a 50-win team. I don't see him as a superstar, but right below that.
Do you think there'll be a playoff team again this year, or at least a play-in?
Yeah, I do. There's too much talent. There's too much talent and good coaching on that. Continuity also. I'm a big believer in that. As you know, I think we talked about that with the Dubs before. So I mean, it's I believe when you retain the same core, plus just add talent on the margins and stuff. I mean, I do think that's going to matter.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but if you had to attribute a percentage in terms of how much are the rule changes impacting players, how much is the Wilson ball impacting them,
Yeah.
versus just like maybe some people in a dry spell, or there's and you noted this earlier, because we do know that when rule changes, there's an overcorrection. So it'll balance out some. But I do tend to think that the way games are being called right now are probably closer to what you're going to see in the postseason than not. So I don't think it's a bad thing that people are getting used to playing like this now, because it actually always annoyed me that the whistle was a certain way in the regular season, and then come the postseason, it changed. For my team, it wasn't that big of a deal because Steph never got the whistle like that anyway.
Yeah.
But I think for certain players, you would see them get frustrated. And if they were like my team, I would understand that, because you're like, he always gets this whistle. Why isn't he getting this whistle? And it's like, oh, well, refs swallow their whistle in the postseason. Why? Why can't we just be consistent all season? So I do like that, but I mean, I do think, again, there is an overcorrection. So I think it'll come down some. So
Yeah.
if you had to assign a percentage to the new rules versus the Wilson ball affecting, and then you said, I think, what else did you say? You said like the
The
fans being
fans,
back,
yeah. I mean,
right? So those, under those things that are now reinserted back into the games, like where would you assign the percentages in terms of what's impacting players?
I think the fouls, you know, the level, and we shouldn't even say the fouls, like just the level of aggression that's allowed now on drives. That's deterring a lot of players from trying to get to the rim, you know, because you have Donovan Mitchell. He's one that's come out and said, you know, I think Dame has also said it, but Donovan was I like the way he framed it. He said it's very inconsistent. We're not going into games knowing what type of physicality is allowed on drives. I mean, on one possession, we can get hammered right in the face from the back of the head or nudged off our path, and it's called. On another possession, the refs just look at you and put their hands in the air, like do better. You know, it's kind of what the refs are like saying. But so I would like more consistency right now. That's one thing. I mean, I'm not,
Do
you
you
know,
agree that it's inconsistent with it? Like, do you agree
I
with
do.
them?
I agree with Mitchell and Dame to a certain extent. Now, when they say, you know, it's getting out of hand in terms of, you know, the ticky tack stuff that I agree shouldn't be called. You know, a lot of the hardened stuff where he's pulling guys' arms or, you know, trying to cheat the system. I do agree that stuff needs to be ruled out. But I I've watched a lot of basketball this year, especially Clippers. Paul George is getting knocked on the head every single time he drives. And I believe what's irritated me the most about it, I guess to answer your question, I would say probably about 20 to 30% of this offensive dip has probably been because of the free throw rate. Maybe 30 to 40% of it's because of the lower free throw rate. I think it's not quite the main reason, but it's one of the reasons. What's annoyed me is that, do you remember 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 2018-19, whenever I guess the Warriors last year with Kevin, they emphasized the refs going into the season said that they were going to emphasize freedom of movement. So you cannot grab a player, touch a
Right,
player, and prohibit their movement off the ball. I
right.
mean, now is that just like gone? Like, is that no longer a thing? Because I mean, now we are seeing guys grab, pull, uh, push, shove. I mean, we're seeing guys get a lot more physical,
I
and
like it.
it's not being called. Which I'm fine. You said you like it. I'm fine if that's going to be the way it is. But I mean, 2 years ago, man, like it was the opposite. It was the point of emphasis. It was being called every time, you know. So I guess just a little bit more clarity on what's going to be allowed now.
I guess it's my own bias, because, like I said, I don't really see Steph as a player that used to get a lot of those calls, and so I feel like he's always known how to play within that. And I
Yeah,
remember it being kind of like a running theme with the Clippers, like, is Paul George going to get a free throw shot tonight, right? But like at the same time, he's still like killing on the court, right? So I
yeah,
feel like the way that I look at it, it's like the men are separating themselves from the boys, and like the best players, it's really not impacting them. And the other ones will just have to figure out how to not let it
yeah,
impact them. So, you know, my response kind of to Donovan Mitchell and Dame and anyone else who's complained has just been like a very hard eye roll. But,
yeah.
you
Uh,
know,
to your
I'm
point,
enjoying it, and I enjoy watching the product more as a
yeah.
result of
To
it.
to your point, I think the coaches, although the coaches are mad about the overcorrection and like it being completely opposite of 2 years ago, they are on board with you in terms of like adjust to it, because Quinn Snyder, like 10 minutes after Donovan said that, basically told the media that night, we're just telling our guards get stronger, like get better, you know, get better at adjusting to it throughout the game, don't get frustrated. So, you know, it's not a thing where coaches are ripping the refs and getting fined for it. They understand it's not going to change based off of them cussing out the refs. I mean, it's going to be the same all year. Hopefully it just gets a little bit more consistent, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I are probably too. They might like it for the defensive end, right? It gives them
Hmm.
the ability to be a little bit more aggressive on defense. So, for also a team like the Warriors, I'm sure this makes Draymond Green very happy. He said it. And so, I don't mind it. So that's just my
We're
thoughts.
seeing a lot. I love it for the defensive end at the rim because we're seeing a lot more, of these highlight reel, contests at the rim. I know. Did you see the Heat Clippers game a couple weeks ago where Paul George went vertical and contested Bam at the rim in the clutch? He didn't block it, but it was a great contest and he got the stop. A lot of that stuff could be whistled as foul. So it's good that we're seeing these, highlight plays now that aren't being, ruined by a whistle.
Right, right. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, what's the other thing it looks like they're going to be focusing on soon? Like the transition, like the foul and transition. They're trying to either
That better be eliminated soon. I would give that another year or two to before they outlaw
really
it because
address it.
it's a hard it's kind of a hard thing to determine what a penalty is. Like if let's say Draymond does it, what's the penalty going to be? I know they've discussed technical free throws, and and then how do you determine what is that foul? What if you wait till the guys pass half court then do it? So it's kind of weird on the technicality of how you can kind of legislate that, but I would like to see that gone.
Okay. So, my Warriors are rolling. They have seemed to surprise a lot of people this season. They're off to a hot 15-2 start. Are you surprised by that start by them? I mean, I know the answer, but I want to know, like, if you are, even though I know the answer, and why. Like, what was it that made you uncertain this would have been like the kind of team you're seeing so far to this point?
Yeah, I'm not even surprised. I'm shocked. I'm shocked because uh so I think this is actually like the point of contention that probably Warriors fans would have with me or that you and I have discussed off the air, but it's never been about me doubting what Steph, Draymond, Iguodala, and Steve Kerr, like that core that's been there for years, including Kevon Looney, who you do not like. So
No,
it's never
no,
been
no,
about.
no. Let's correct the record. I love Looney. I think he's a fundamentally sound player, and I understand his importance to our team.
Yeah,
I also find him to be slow as molasses, as I often say. And I can't deal with all the pump fakes under the rim. I just
that's
can't
true.
take them, and I would prefer in certain
Mm.
matchups, with certain teams, maybe if when we get Wiseman back, assuming he can handle certain things, that we just have a player that's a little bit more athletic. That's all. But I
Yeah,
love Looney. I love all the screen setting he does. Really super high IQ player for us.
yeah. See, I've never doubted that core in terms of what they can do at their peak or what they can do when they're fully intact and healthy. Last year they won at a really good rate, really solid rate with Steph on the floor. And the games that he missed, they they lost a lot. So I mean, that was why they found themselves in that position in the play-in. But I just didn't kind of see, or I didn't kind of anticipate the impact that Wiggins, Jordan Poole. I mean, I've always been like a Bjelica fan in terms of what he can contribute, but like I didn't see like the minutes when Steph's on the bench being passable to a degree that they could just blitz teams. It seems like, I mean, they're still going to be miles better with Steph on the floor, but it seems like things are running efficiently when he's not. I mean, they can put together a good offensive scheme and system to make things work when he's not out there. They're not heavily reliant on that. So I think
And do you
a
think that's
lot
what
of
it
it.
is? Do you think
I
like is
think
that the
that
biggest thing?
to me, it's how much better things look when Steph is not having a great game. That's
Okay.
that's the best way to put it. I mean, if he's was that opening night that he shot poorly in Staples Center but did everything else well, and the team really picked him up, and the team put together a good run to come away with that win. We saw it the other night was against Toronto in that boxing one. To put it in simplest terms, I didn't see Jordan Poole being able to do what he's doing. I know he shot poorly from three before last couple games, but I just didn't see him as a guy that can get 30 when Steph is having a bad night. So it's kind of me not believing in the rest of the cast coming in. So they have definitely proved me wrong. I still probably wouldn't say they're my favorites in the West, but
It's still
they're
the Utah
they're
Jazz.
it'd probably be Utah or Phoenix. But I mean that's just me. I mean, I think that
What is
I'm
that bit
more
of
than fair
reservation
here.
about? What is that bit of reservation about? To even put them, even if you don't have them as the favorites, to put them right on par with those two teams. What's your reservation and doubt
My
about?
reservation of why they might not beat those teams.
Yeah.
I just happen to think that I just happen to like what Utah. It's not about Golden State. It's more about Phoenix and Utah being really really good in the half court that I like. Um, of course, like I'm not saying it's going to be like a if they match in a series, it would be a blowout either way, or they definitely could not beat this team. Yeah, I mean, I think it could go either way. But I just like what Phoenix having the same core from last year, pretty much identical core from last year with a couple shooters added. Um, the way they've been rolling in the half court, the way Chris has them going, clicking on all cylinders, whether it's with his pick and roll attack, DeAndre Ayton looks, even though he didn't get paid yet, looks even better as a finisher now. So I kind of just like what those teams have going on in the half court. Utah's had some hiccups. A lot of that's because they cannot shoot the ball right now. I mean, they just had a good shooting night the other night, but they're one team that's due for some positive regression or progression to the mean with shooting. So I think we'll see.
Right.
When those teams, I think when Phoenix, Utah both play Golden State, I think Phoenix plays Golden State on Christmas,
Next
right?
week. We actually play
Next
them
week and
twice next
Christmas.
week. So we play
Oh,
them
that's
three times.
awesome. Yeah.
Christmas is the third time. I have to check because
Hmm.
I'm not sure if we play them a fourth time this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, by Christmas Day, that'll be the third time we play them.
Yeah.
So
I really do love how the Warriors look when they go small as well. So I really want to see the small ball versus DeAndre Ayton. See the kind of the positives and negatives of that. How Draymond can hold up, or that's another thing. Like when Wiseman's back, I mean, I want to see how that matchup looks as well. So we're not going to have full answers to probably who's the championship favorite in the West or the finals favorite in the West until we get these teams at full strength.
yeah, everyone keeps talking about Aiton, and I think Aiton's great, and I think he should get paid. That's just my opinion, but I'm not overly concerned about him. I mean, he'll do what he does. I'm not saying like we're gonna shut him down, but I mean, I've watched Dre on Anthony Davis kind of hold
Oh
his
yeah,
own, so I'm not like I don't think that DeAndre Ayton particularly brings anything to the table that a player like Anthony Davis doesn't. So I'm just not overly concerned there. With someone like Joker, let's say, and I'm not concerned about them either. But
oh
like if it
poor
was a
poor
center,
Denver.
I know it really sucks. It sucks for them, and it also obviously sucks for what's his name, the player. I just
Oh,
brain
Michael
fart.
Porter Jr. Yeah.
Michael Porter. I was gonna say Michael Carter, but I'm like, no, he's not Michael Carter. What is his last name? Michael Porter. Yeah, I mean, very sad for him. I hope that it's not a long-term thing, but nerve issues are never great. So,
Yeah.
I mean, they're still gonna get Jamal Murray back, though, right? So,
Yeah. But the problem is like they don't have the horses to
yeah,
defend. I don't think. I mean, Porter wasn't even a good defender as
no,
it
he
was, but
wasn't.
but he had size. I don't think they have size. If
Right.
it pretty much requires Jokic to play the entire game.
You could probably see them being a team that may try to make some moves like before the trade deadline, right? To try to
Yeah.
get a little help if they're losing him for the
Yeah.
season. But yeah, like if it was a center like Jokic who could do like, some passing and hurt us in other
Mhm.
ways, but that's not like what DeAndre Ayton's doing for that team. So I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not that concerned about that matchup with him like a lot of people seem to
Yeah.
be, but
Phoenix Phoenix is more like DeAndre Ayton isn't going to abuse you as like the he does love to post up and he's really good at it because I mean he's a massive human, so of course.
right.
Um but he's not going to beat you as like the passing hub like Jokic will. Jokic will
Right.
be at the elbow and have one pass away everywhere on the floor, which really
Right.
demoralizes teams. Where Phoenix is a well-oiled machine, and they're thriving right now. They'll set double high screens for Chris. He'll come off, and if they trap him, or if they send two to him, or he can't turn the corner because he's not as fast anymore, it's a short roll to DeAndre Ayton, and you have to. I mean, you have to rotate over that because And if Draymond's in that position, DeAndre is a lot taller than Draymond, right? And he's able to,
Right.
he has a good floater, a good finish ability. You have to rotate over, and that's going to leave a corner shooter open. That's where Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson just get clicking, and
Right.
that's hard to stop. It's really hard to defend. So I think they have the best offense in the NBA. Not numbers wise right now. That's still Utah somehow. But I think Phoenix probably has like the best system right now. It's just gonna, in a series between Steph and the Warriors and Phoenix, it would come down to how much does Steph just negate all of that.
And Clay, because he'll be back.
Yeah. Which it's wild. It is
That's
wild
why
to think.
I don't understand like right now how people are. I guess if you're hedging because you don't know what Clay is gonna look like, but I guess the way that I feel about that is Clay, just by being on the court,
Yeah,
is
I agree
going
with that.
to is just going to require respect, right? No one's going to be like, he's been gone for 2 years, let's see what he has.
Yeah.
He's going to be defended like he's Clay. And so
Yeah.
I just feel like him being on the court, his shooting threat. And then if you don't believe it, I dare you leave Clay open. You know, he's gonna still shoot the basketball. So if I have to bank on offense coming from Steph and Clay, I'm gonna always bet on them over any team. You know, it's just that's the way that I feel about that. And
it might honestly be one of those things that where Clay comes back, in December, and we see 5 games, and then that's enough for all of us to say, yeah, championship favorite. That could be what happens, but we'll see.
You got to see it. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Steve Kerr, I mean, you followed the Warriors before and looked at them. He's not a coach that really likes to double and send traps, so that's why. I mean, I don't know how
it's mainly switch. It's switch.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm not really concerned about how other teams defend Phoenix, like unless even when like we had that game against the Wolves where Anthony Edwards like almost went for 50 and went crazy on us. It took him almost to the very end of the game before he would even send 2 bodies at Ant Edwards. I mean, it's just not what he does. Same thing like when we played the Rockets, it was switching and he doesn't really do that. So
it's a good thing you put. Thank you for pointing that out because I mean, and that's where I think the whole Phoenix and Golden State potential matchup could be awesome in the playoffs because who was a common denominator on that Rockets team? Chris, when it comes to switching. I mean, if you switch big on him, you're cooked. I mean, you most of the time you're cooked. Devin Booker is getting really good at that too. So if Golden State wants to switch, Phoenix has the tools to combat that, and vice versa. So I mean, I love that. I love that dynamic. It might be the most fun matchup in the West if you told me Kawhi Leonard's not coming back.
So what I mean. So could you see that being a potential Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not high on the Lakers making it there, or do you still think they can be?
I'm the lowest possible person on the Los Angeles Lakers. Coming into the year, I told you, not on air, that 41-41 was my pick for them. And I saw them as a play-in team, just because you cannot realistically look at that roster or that rotation and say that these pieces fit. If you do, I think you're fooling yourself. I just think no matter how much you bank on talent, the problem is that Russell Westbrook isn't this level of talent that public perception says he is, right? He's still really good and capable when LeBron's not playing because he can kind of not carry your offense. It's not even to that degree anymore like it was in Oklahoma City, but he can at least make passable decisions and get you in pick and roll and get to the rim. He's still getting to the rim a lot. But in the half court, I don't see their offense or defense panning out if Russ is on the floor in the long run. Even in a series against a good shooting team, I think it would go off the cliff pretty fast.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to play the Lakers and the Suns like in the postseason. I don't really care what order it comes in, but I want to play both of those teams. And
Mm-hmm.
the Phoenix Suns fans, to me, they've gotten a little out of hand in my face. You know, they're a little cocky, too cocky for me. So I would like to see Phoenix.
Oh, you mean you don't condone fighting in an arena and being rewarded for it with courtside seats?
I don't even care about that. I mean, they were online telling me, oh, yeah, if we play the Dubs, it's going to be a short series. Excuse you? Stephen
Oh
Curry has
wow.
never played less than 6 games in a series. What in the actual hell are you
That
talking
that's a
about?
great fact that I don't think a lot of people would know.
I have to remember that I'm in my parents' home right now, so I can't be cursing the way that I do. But let me tell you something. I did not appreciate that comment. And they've just been a little wild on Twitter. They've been feeling
Yeah.
themselves a little bit too much. And
Look,
I also, go ahead.
I was gonna say Paul George went into whatever they're calling that footprint center now. They've named it 6 different names since I've been a
Yeah.
fan of the NBA. Paul George went in there and dropped 44, 45 on really high quality shooting and won that game by himself. So pretty
Yeah.
sure that they can be beaten.
Yeah, they went to a 6 game series and that was with no Kawhi. So like I don't
Yeah.
want to hear much like that they're like this. They're just really high on themselves. And I mean, I get it.
Mm.
Like I'd be high on my team too, but you're not going to disrespect champions and act like y'all are just going to like roll over Steph, Clay, and Draymond. Like that's just asinine to me. So yeah, I'd like to play the Suns. And I also don't appreciate that like Golden State's schedule was harped on so much when like Phoenix equally has a pretty soft schedule to begin the season.
Yeah.
So like everyone's focused on us, but no one's talking about them and they're 13 in a row, 14 in a row, whatever the hell it is. Like they don't have
13.
a soft schedule. So I'm just like, I'm over
Yeah.
the Suns already, and we're not even halfway
Anyone,
through the season.
and I know you have mostly been in defense of the strength of schedule talk, so this doesn't apply to you. But like, I hate any strength of schedule talk 20 games in, or what, it started 10 games in. When people were like, denigrating the Warriors record by
And the
saying who they
Bulls, we
played.
were the two teams that people did it to a lot. It was the Bulls
It's
and the Warriors. I didn't see it
it's
with anyone else.
wild. By the way, like they haven't played anyone. NBA talent is NBA freaking talent. I mean,
Right.
it's hard. It is hard to beat. You can't use Cleveland as an example because they were really good before. Or they were pretty good before their injuries and stuff.
Before
But
Mobley, yeah.
it's hard to beat the bottom of the barrel teams. Even Toronto. Toronto's really well coached. They have gritty guards. Van Vliet's always going to give you his best. Like it's hard to beat these teams that aren't necessarily playoff teams.
Yeah, speaking of Toronto, because you just brought them up, and there was a point you made earlier that I wanted to touch on. Because the game on Sunday versus the Raptors, you were making an example of something, but like people would say that wasn't a good game by Steph, right? And
Yeah.
I think it's interesting because I mean he didn't shoot well, but
Hmm.
I don't even pay attention to that. It's actually interesting because if you were watching that game, it was pretty apparent to me that Steph just decided to say, okay, my guys are playing well. I'm going to be a decoy and that's it. I mean,
Yeah.
um, Warriors Reddit posted a bunch of clips from the game where like Steph is not even in the frame. Like he's just out by half court chilling. Fred Van Vliet is on him. And like he's just letting the guys play 4-on-4, but there's just so much space on the court. And
Yeah.
like because I think some people get in their head like, oh, Fred Van Vliet is the answer for Steph. And if Steph really wants to like be aggressive and
Yeah.
he can, but there was just no need. Wiggins was going off, Jordan Poole was going off. There really wasn't need for him to do much but play decoy on the court, and that was enough to help his team.
Yeah.
So like to me, and I think other Warriors fans recognize that, we were delighted. We love seeing our guys go off.
Mhm.
So, but it's just sometimes when people explain that about Steph, it's like, you guys understand that if he really wanted to do more, he could. Like he just said, all right,
Yeah.
they're doing
All it
what
would
they need
take
to.
all it would take is him demanding the ball, calling for a screen, and getting Fred off of him, and then attacking that disoriented defense. I mean, that's all it would take. But the problem is when an opposing coach is selling out to stop that, then
being ridiculous.
you have to trust everyone else, and that's the difference. Like he will trust his teammates more so than I'm not gonna name names, but like any other player. I mean, it just seems like he is fine with scoring whatever he scored that game. Was it 10? I don't know what it
Right.
was. I mean, it's
He
like
doesn't care.
he's fine with that. Yeah, it's gonna hurt my average. Well, guess what? I'll score 55 in a couple weeks, and that'll boost it back up. So I think that's his mentality. It's totally fine as long as that is giving Jordan, Andrew, Otto reps to dictate the offense, and really that's a big issue for teams, and that I'd be scared to throw a box and one out there because you're only allowing all these other guys to create plays and get more confident with that. You're much more dangerous that way than if you play the Harden Rockets way and you have Ariza, Luke Babamute just like stationed in the corner and not moving, and then when the time comes that they have to make a play, they look scatterbrained. I mean
Right.
that you're much more able to win in the playoffs if your guys are comfortable making those plays and reads.
Yeah, I mean, we were really annoyed during that game, and you saw a lot of us being like, "Nurse, this is not the 2019 team. Like that box and one shit is not going to work with this cast of characters." And it worked in 2019 for a reason. Like Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson were gone, and I'm not
Hmm.
going to say the players that were on the court because I don't want to like just disrespect any player, but like, come on, like that shit is not going to work. And some people were like, "Well,
What
I still."
where
Let's
is
not even do
McKinney?
it. Let's not even do it. And some people would be like, well, but he's banking on maybe next time they don't get hot from three. But they don't have to get hot from three to kill you. Like both Andrew and
Yeah.
Poole can attack the rim, right? Like they don't have to just beat them with 3-pointers. Because if you think about that game at the first game of the season that we won versus the Lakers. They won in the paint. Like that's what they did because the shots
Hmm.
weren't falling. Poole didn't start making threes till the third quarter. They just kept scoring in the
Yeah.
paint, kept scoring at the rim. So this is what I like that like a player like Andrew and both Poole are so versatile. Like they're not even relying on 3-pointers. So
Hmm.
I'm really pleased with the squad and the team. Um, and so yeah, and I can't wait for Clay to get back. And I think Kaminga has been like a great surprise in terms of what he's been able to do in
Yeah.
limited minutes and like his defensive prowess. And so I'm excited too. I think that Wiseman is gonna help. And I think when
Yeah.
Clay is back
I meant.
and you put Jordan in
Hmm.
that second unit fully and him and Wiseman are there and you give him that to run, I think I think adding that to what we already have is going to be
Yeah.
really good. I do.
I'm interested to see, and I think the Warriors roster is all full of like stand up guys and guys that don't care necessarily about playing time. That they care, but they're not gonna like voice it. Um, I'm interested to see like how that dynamic plays out when Clay's back getting 33 minutes. It's like
Yeah,
like,
everyone's saying
that's a lot of
that.
minutes. That's 200. You're only allowed 240 player minutes in a single game. 33 that's going to Clay. I mean, I think they'll ease him into
Not
that too. Like
initially,
he
right?
will not be. Yeah, he will not be playing that right off the bat. Maybe not even till the All Star break. So
I don't think that's going to be an issue, and this is the reason why. One, like we said, it's Clay is going to be eased in. He's also going to not play back to backs, right? It's going to be
mm,
so you're going to have some time before his minutes ramp up, which I think is going to be more like closer to the ending of the season, like definitely after All Star break. But the other thing is, like,
yeah,
it's just going to put Poole in like the full 6-man role, right? So I think he's still going to see like a lot of minutes a night, but he just won't be with the starters. And I think there are other players who Kerr will want to take time from to preserve, right? So I think he'll get minutes in that way. Like a player right now who's lost some of his minutes is Juan, right? Because when Iguodala is
hmm,
playing and then Kaminga's in the rotation now, he isn't seeing the court. But when Iguodala is out, Juan is getting playing time. And so like a player like him gets impacted, but I think for some of those vets, like, he really wants to be mindful. They play different positions, but I think Kerr is going to look to take minutes from older players that he doesn't want to overexert. So
I mean,
Andre,
because I was gonna say like
Otto,
Clay can guard the guys that Andre guards, so you
right,
don't have to play Andre X amount of minutes that he's
right,
playing now. I'm a little
right.
I'm a little concerned when I see that Andre's playing these heavy, not heavy minutes, but a lot of minutes at this age. Like, give him some nights off.
And he's had some lately. I think
Mm,
they're saying it's for injury, but I think it's mostly to rest. And so that's what I mean. So I think you're going to see some of those minutes come from other places, at least in the regular season. So
yeah,
I'm not worried, at least then, about like Clay's minutes. Postseason is different. Everyone should expect that only certain players, like, it's just going to be
yeah.
your top eight
No
or nine
back to
guys.
backs. It's spread
Yeah.
out. Mm,
So I'm not that concerned about the minutes, to be honest. So yeah, we have some games coming up. Let's get into those because I want to pick your brain about some of these teams. So
yeah.
we're gonna be playing the Blazers on Black Friday, day after Thanksgiving. And the Blazers are, I think are they right at 500 now or a game below
9-8,
500?
I believe. 9-8.
Okay. So yeah, they started out struggling this season. Dame was
Yeah.
not shooting well. CJ was on a roll. Is CJ still on a roll or has he like kind of leveled
CJ
off?
has come back down to earth, but I mean to me it hasn't been at a level that's like ghastly. Like, it's like he's just back to what you would expect.
Any chance that he makes an all-star game this year? Because I think he would have last year if he didn't get hurt.
My pick on that is always going to be no because of how
The guards.
deep the guard. Oh my God! It's someone asked me, a local friend asked
Ja's
me the
gonna
other
make it
day.
this year. Ja's gonna make
Yeah,
it this year, right?
a local friend asked me. Yeah, he is. A local friend asked me the other day, like, would so and so make the All Star, like Mike Conley or something. I'm like, I'm sorry, like no, there's only 5 or 6 guards. I think 4 for sure. Then you have a wild card pick, so you could have 5 guards. Steph, Dame, like those are always going to be up there as well. Ja's been so good. I mean, you run into a lot of guards before you get to CJ.
So, I mean, Mike made it last year only as an injury replacement, and he was the
Mm-hmm.
second replacement. So Booker went in before
Yeah.
him. Booker's
Of
going to
course.
get a
Yeah.
spot this year.
Of course.
Now,
And Chris
CP,
Paul.
he's going to get a spot, although I don't know that he necessarily warrants it, but he's going to get one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Chris is more so. He won't be a starter, but all of the coaches love him, so the coaches will pick him in. So.
So, what about a player? Because I was kind of castigated by Warriors fans, some of them, because I said I don't think Andrew Wiggins will make an all-star team. Now, I did say that before he stepped up his game a little bit in these last 5 games, but and I know that there are a lot of
Forwards, yeah.
yeah, I know a lot of them are out right now, but I don't think that there are enough out because I think a lot of those wild card spots go to guards because the guards are so deep
Yeah.
in the West and there's not enough spots. So, and I think
Well,
Draymond is going to make the All-Star game this year. If he keeps
yeah,
playing
Draymond's
defense
a
at
lock.
this level. So I feel like those are the only 2 All-Stars we're going to get. And Andrew would be a
Yeah.
push or even Poole. I just don't see it. But it's not because I don't think that Andrew is not having that kind of season. I just think that there's other players who are going to make it before him.
I know exactly why he's not going to make it is because
Reputation.
there are that, and I think people confuse All-Star with All NBA. All NBA,
Right.
there is a designated center spot. All-Star, it's just front court, front court.
Right.
So, I mean, that goes to Jokic, that goes to all your centers that are dominating, all your bigs that wouldn't necessarily be a 3 or 4. So, I mean, yeah, he's going to be on the margins. I will say he's never, for me, Wiggins, been in the running for it. It's always been, no, he's on the Wolves, exclude him, write him off immediately. Now he's at least made it to where, okay, he's in the consideration pool, which is, that's a testament to what he's doing right now.
So would do you think like the Wolves, right? Because right now they are in a play-in spot and they seem to get back on the winning track. Do you think that like an Ant Edwards or a Cat would get an All-Star? Are they getting at least one All-Star spot?
I think Cat would.
Because he's been one before.
Cat's been there before. He, again, the skill set is very aesthetically pleasing. Like, people love it. I feel like you won't see a bad thing said about Cat. Um, the thing is though, it's like, have they done enough to that point? And plus, like, it's only November, what, 22nd, 23rd.
Right.
It's like, I think the voting for that will open mid-January. So if they are in this spot, like if the Wolves are like 8th or 7th, somewhere around there, then yeah, I think Cat will be in there for sure. If
But
they're below this,
Beal got
if
it
they're,
last year, and the Wizards were really low when Beal got
I
picked for
think
an
that's because
All-Star
he was
last year.
I think he was leading the league in scoring at that point. Yeah,
Do you think people take in team record for All-Star?
absolutely. There was actually, I believe, was it Jeff Van Gundy? It was one of the Van Gundys was on Zach Lowe's podcast and said, if you're under 500, you're out of consideration. So, and those are coaches, the people that pick the reserves. They absolutely do. Yeah.
So if the Warriors are still rolling and they have like some insane record come All-Star time,
Yeah.
and they have the best record in the entire league, not just the West,
Yeah.
do you think that would be enough to get them a third All-Star spot?
It would be enough to where you would say, like, we at least need to put Wiggins against forward X, center X, to kind of compare them and see if he deserves it.
And it would be Wiggins,
it's
not Poole, that you think would be the consideration.
Yeah, Wiggins.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Wiggins for me. Yeah, it'd be what a remarkable story if Poole was even in their in consideration. That's no one would have expected that.
Do you think Andrew Wiggins can be in real consideration for an all-defensive team this year, or no?
Reputation says no. Because
let's take reputation out of it, but just the way he's playing defense, do you think it warrants it?
Consideration, yeah. I really wish that, maybe I'm the only person that ever says this, but I kind of wish there were 3 all defensive teams instead of 2, because it's really hard to fit everyone on there. It feels like you get the guys that are locks just because of rep. Patrick Beverley's had a couple of those where, like, he wasn't necessarily one of the best defending guards that year, but he got it because he's known as this feisty guy. Bledsoe's had a couple. I feel like that it always goes to the guys that are kind of like, known as the veteran defensive leaders. But like, for example, like Gary Payton, probably one of the best defensive guards in the league right now, but he's not going to get he doesn't get the minutes.
He doesn't play enough minutes.
That. Exactly.
Steph should get an all defensive spot this year.
I don't know about that. I really don't know.
No, I know you won't agree, but he should.
If there was a career accolade, or if there was a I guess a number for all defensive consideration, that should go on his resume.
No, he should get it, because if you think about him as a guard and consider what he's doing right now on defense, plus the load he carries on offense, all those other guards are just like playing defense. How many people are doing it on both ends? Not a guard. There are like some Jimmy, like people like that. But how many people are really doing it on both ends? Giannis, Jimmy.
Yeah, I mean, like I think like an issue. There's not a lot doing on both ends to answer your question, but like the issue is, in a vacuum, like someone like Mike Conley's better defensively than Steph.
Is he this year though? I don't think so.
From what I've seen, he's been really good this year. But I mean, it's hard to really say who's been better. Like it's subjective. So I mean, I don't know.
Steph agenda this year.
Yeah, Steph agenda, and plus, like, what's going to help is that Drew Holiday's missed time.
Right.
And he'll probably miss more time. It seems like Steph's only going to miss games that he's out for scheduled rest. But
yeah, we have an agenda, but I also think that he at least should get consideration. I'm not saying it like just to be silly.
Yeah.
I like Steph's defense has been like really great this year. I don't think enough people are paying attention.
Yeah, he's been great. Who's not getting all defensive consideration? Either the Portland guards, because they are bad.
They're awful. They're bad. We are supposed to be talking about them. It's hard because Shane, like, you come on and you're like a wealth of basketball knowledge, and I want to pick your brain.
Say that.
No, but you are, and I want to pick your brain about so many things. So Portland's coming up, so and I went off on this tangent on All-Star, but right before this episode ends, I want to just go through who potentially could be on the All-Star. Like I want to just like say some names, but we'll get there at the end of the show. CJ and Dame, the Blazers. What was the reason for their slow start? We know Dame was struggling. We already talked about maybe some of the reasons he could have been struggling. Not him specifically, but generally. But is it adjusting to a new system, new coach? What was the reason for their slow start?
It was a myriad of things. I think the poor shooting was out of happenstance. I don't think it was like this is why Dame is shooting poorly. He was missing a boat ton, like a lot of wide open shots, stuff that he would generate last year and torch the league with. I mean, he
so why was
had
he
one
whining
of his,
and complaining then? Because he was one of the
so
ones
his free.
Let's be clear, everyone. I'm the one who phrased it like that. Shane is not saying that Dame whined and complained. Me, Natalie, I'm the one who said that. Go ahead, Shane.
His free throw attempt rate plummeted. I think a lot of people have made Harden the poster child for not getting the calls, but his free throw rate's almost identical to last year. Lillard, per field goal attempt, it was 0.363 free throws per field goal attempt, which is a moderate rate, not KD level, but moderate rate. But now it's like 0.213. I mean, it's plummeted down to a level that people have criticized Paul George for not getting to the line a lot. Dame is not getting there as well.
Dame is one of those guys too it's kind of under the radar who relies on free throws pretty heavily. What you said about Harden was interesting to me though, because you said it's about the same. But what I've noticed is that in many games for Harden, he's not getting to the line that much. He's getting there about 5 or 6. I'm not sure like how many points he's getting off of those.
It's up to 7 now.
Right, but that's because he had like these outlier games like Orlando and the Pelicans where he gets like 20 something freaking free throws, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's but if you take those out, because there could be more of those games, but there's only been like 2 or 3 of them. But if you take those out, it's been in like 5 to 6 range, or 4 to 5, I'm not sure. So Dame is definitely being impacted by the free throws. Anything else? Yeah. Less by getting to the line less for whatever reason.
No, yeah, that was going to be my secondary point. My original point was going to be that I fully believe if you revamp and just like completely bring in a different coaching staff, you get the benefit of the doubt. I don't care how bad you were last year. Like I think that you get the benefit of the doubt to kind of learn the new system. Chauncey Billups takes over for Terry Stotts, puts in a completely different defensive style. Now that's not often. That's not like contributing to Dame's poor offensive start or anything. But it's a lot to kind of process. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to learn in film sessions. A whole new coaching staff. It's not like they just replaced the head coach.
What did he change primarily? Like what's the difference?
They're so Chauncey being under Ty Lue and Dan Craig, who was their defensive coordinator with the Clippers, but previously with Miami, has wanted to make their defensive approach more aggressive, like trap more pick and rolls, show and recover, which is where Dame will lunge out. It's kind of what what Steph did against the Cavaliers in those finals. Lunge out at LeBron or whoever the ball handler is, then hurry up and get back to your guy. See if you can prevent switches, because they don't want to get in situations where Dame is switched onto a premier forward or whatever. They want to kind of prevent those. So they're kind of being more aggressive, trying to force more turnovers at the point of attack. And that's got them in some trouble on the back end, when guys aren't tied together with rotations. As you know, if you blitz or if you have 2 or 3 guys outside the perimeter guarding the initial pick and roll ball handler, you better have a Draymond-esque type player to get back, right? Or to handle the backline rotations. That's Portland's problem. They haven't had that. They think Robert Covington is that. Robert Covington is only good at being physical one-on-one or preventing a lot of the off-ball movement. He was always someone that would be real physical with Steph, on those off-ball cuts and stuff like that.
Do you think a player like Ben Simmons could be in that role?
Ben Simmons would be phenomenal as a backline helper. I think he'd be a really good help defender.
I
So
asked that
that's
question.
obviously
I asked that question because, you know, it's really about Draymond, what I'm getting at, because sometimes people don't appreciate Dre's defense because they don't understand. Like, I mean, he's a great individual defender too, but he's a quarterback of a defense. Like, he
yeah.
really is out there like protecting everything, right? And he's
Yeah.
calling out where people should be in their positions.
Yeah.
I
And
actually don't
it's
view Ben Simmons as that kind of defender, and I don't view most people in the league like that kind of defender. So I was just curious, like, but
it'd
Ben
be
would still probably be
really
better than Robert Covington.
oh, of course. The size alone. He is able to be a pseudo rim protector because of the 6'10", 6'11" size Ben Simmons has. So Portland's primary the problem is that they are relying on Yusuf Nurkic or Robert Covington to handle the backline stuff. It's not worked out well. Teams are also lighting them up from the perimeter. Teams are getting to the rim at will, which is of course tied to what I said, how they want their guards to be more aggressive. It's getting them in trouble. So defense still right now. Last year, a problem under Terry Stotts, why they fired him was because the defense just couldn't take another step. They continually were bottom three. Now, 28th in half court defense under Chauncey Billups. But it's only been 17 games. I think that is something that I said I wasn't going to really hammer them or evaluate them until December. It's getting close to that. We're getting close. We're getting there.
And you haven't seen any
I,
improvements?
no, I mean they have won 4 of their last 5. One against the skeleton Sixers team that had Seth Curry, leading the show. It's really hard to kind of say what kind of team they are. The big issue though, Nat, is I'm curious where you stand on this or where you thought they would be. The expectations for the team, I don't. For me, what I'm seeing right now isn't surprising because I thought they were going to be a 500 team. I thought they were going to be 44-38. I thought they were going to be top 7 offense, probably maybe get a little bit better defensively because Chauncey has good defensive principles from Ty Lue and those Clippers. That hasn't come out. That hasn't turned out well yet. Right now they're right where I expected them to be. So I'm curious where you thought they would land in the West.
Same. I didn't think. I mean, where did they end up last year? 5 or 6? They weren't
6 and played
so
and played the 3 seed Nuggets.
Yeah. So and that was because I think there was like a tie, right, or something for that spot, like a 3-way tie. I mean, I didn't think that they were a truth. I mean, they were a 6 seed, but I thought that they would probably be a play-in team, or I thought that if like a team like Memphis made it in this year, I thought the Blazers or possibly Dallas would be. Dallas has surprised me a little bit, but I definitely thought that the Blazers, like if a team was going to be knocked out,
I never had Portland on the same level as Dallas. Yeah,
right. So I thought that they would. Because I thought there was a good chance that Memphis would make it in. They made it in last year, but they made it in because the Warriors were going to definitely be in there this year. So I was giving Memphis a chance to be in the 8th spot or maybe 7. I don't know. And so the team that I thought would have come out would have been the Blazers. So yeah, I didn't have them that high.
Yeah, and I think that the fan base itself, obviously there are reasons why they didn't. There are a lot of off-court reasons why they didn't want Chauncey as to take over. So that's one thing, but also like, I don't think that the fan base was completely on board with changing out that what they had going on with Stotts. I mean, they had a really nice offensive groove with that team, and they could score on anybody. The issue was always like, how can we stop these teams, these dynamic guards from just torching us and drop coverage? And they brought Yusuf Nurkic up to the level of the screen this year. That has opened up the paint. So it's just open up the floodgates. If it's not one thing, it's another. So I think what we're seeing now is a personnel issue. This team has probably run its course, and they are going to be back in the 7th or 6th spot this year and get blitzed by Utah, Phoenix, or Golden State. And that's just the reality of it. And you kind of have to look at Dame and say, like, okay, are you going to ride this out? I actually believe that he wants to stay there, so that's going to be fascinating from that perspective to see if he stays true to his word, or if this season, which is like his ninth or 10th, I think it's his ninth season, if this becomes too much for him.
Yeah, as you see, I'm like rolling my eyes for anyone who's listening on audio and not watching on video. I am like so over and tired of hearing about Dame and his conundrum of staying in Phoenix or not. Like I'm not Phoenix, Portland. Like I really don't give a shit, to be honest. Listen, first, there's two things. One, I think that like Dame gets like a big pass. And what I mean by that, it's like, poor Dame, like first of all, I think there's things Dame could do to improve his game and to improve his team, right? So I get that he's smaller, right? But like he's a little shorter than Steph, but Steph has become a first of all, Steph was always a better defender, but Steph has become a better defender, right? Part of defense is effort. He's gotten stronger. He's done certain things to make himself better. And so I feel like on that end, he could just take on that personal responsibility, because I don't even see Dame putting the effort out there a lot of times on defense. So like, to me, he's just getting a pass for that because people are just so enamored with his offense, I guess. And clutch Dame, that's all I ever fucking hear about. And then secondly, there's like the fact that like, because he's always, there's always a story out there about how they want Draymond Green on that team, right? And they just think like if they get Draymond, and I'm like, if you guys get Draymond, that's not going to work like how it works in Golden State, because on the defense, you'll get a much better defensive player. So your team will probably improve defensively. But unless Dame is giving up the ball to Dre, right? And then that means that Dame has to play more off ball. But he's never really looked like that's a part of his game that he's felt
Of
like
course.
changing or adjusting, right?
And I think it's kind of a, not a shame, but it's like it's kind of annoying that he hasn't kind of embraced this, off ball type movement, which, if you tell that to Portland fans, their answer would be that they don't have someone else that, when CJ's off the, they don't have someone else that can kind of dictate on the short roll. I would argue against that and say, like, Yusuf Nurkic has been pretty good at handling those responsibilities when he has that wide open lane. It's just, I think Portland's issue is they've never had everything that you need to be successful at once. They've always had, you remember those teams with Al-Farouq Aminu and was it Evan Turner? That they did pretty well in the playoffs, but they could never make an open shot. Now they have guys that can make those open corner threes, but they don't have the defenders.
Passer.
So they've never had everything at once.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't, but I still think there's been some reluctance on Dame and CJ to a lesser extent to modify aspects of their game. And so I'm not saying that if they did that automatically, it would turn them into like a 1 seed and like the favorite, but I think that you would not have some first round outs. And the reason why I think that matters is because if they went a little bit further and looked like they were just a mere piece away, it might make them more attractive, right, to free agents. Because Portland is not a free agent destination. Yeah. But if you're getting swept in the first round every year or a gentleman's sweep and you're losing in that way, I don't think at all people are going to consider you a place to go to. Plus, it's Portland on top of it. So... it's just like, and then it's like the whole like, well, I don't want to leave, I want to be loyal crap. It's like, I say crap because like, okay, I get it. Like you want to stay with the organization that drafted you. I understand that. But at the end of the day, it's probably not going to work out with the organization that drafted you. So you either stay or you leave. I don't want to hear the complaining about it every day. Like I'm probably, it's costing myself because like, I don't want to hear it. Like, people have to make these hard decisions in life all the time. So what you're saying
is it's cool that you're deciding to do this and be loyal, but you don't also get to
But
complain about
why?
it.
Exactly.
You have to choose a side. You can't have both. But
Because what
you
I
know,
think it actually is that he just doesn't want to look like a bad guy. I don't even know how much it's like he's just like, I gotta be in Portland. But he used to talk
well,
so much.
yeah,
He used to talk so much about
you know
being
how I feel about
loyal.
it.
He used to yap
I
his
do not
mouth.
care.
Go ahead, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I do not care. I do not care about like a player staying where he should be his whole career. Look at Harden. Like I do not hate James Harden. I like him as a player. I don't care that he's on Brooklyn. I don't care that he's been on three different teams. Kevin Durant's probably the best scorer of all time. No one cares that he's been on like four different teams, or three.
I mean, I think it
I
matters.
just I don't care about it.
I think it matters. Like, I do think that, like, Kobe being with the Lakers his whole career, likely Steph doing it, I think that's going to mean something. But not everyone's going to have the ability to do that. And I think we can understand that as
Exactly.
well. Right. And so when the circumstance dictates that it's not going to happen for you here, I think it's very reasonable to leave. Right. And that's my issue. It's like it's reasonable. But part of the reason why it doesn't feel reasonable to Dame is because him and CJ made their living yapping about players leaving and how they would never do it and they're
Oh
so
my God,
loyal
thank you.
and blah 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 blah.
The,
So now when it's your time and you're gonna have to do it, you have all of that out there. And so now
I
you're like, oh,
hope
shit, what are people gonna say about us? I don't care.
I hope Paul George goes on a Instagram tirade about how Dame is running from the grind if he leaves or something like
Yes,
that, because
right? Like
it was remarkable that they had the nerve to say that about Paul whenever they
after what
have
he
been
did for
getting.
Indiana.
Yeah, that as well, but also how much just PG bust them every time they play. I mean, PG just
That's
doesn't
why
lose to those guys.
that whole like him scoring that last shot on Paul George annoyed me because I'm
Yeah.
just like, I have people debating with me about whether Paul George or Damian Lillard is the better player. And I'm just like, I need you people to like get glasses, okay? Like Paul George is a
And
wing.
it was a realistic debate a couple of years ago for sure, but to me it's been Paul for a couple of years. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it's Paul George is a wing, first of all. And I
Yeah.
am not one of those people who like focus on you're a taller player, right? Because I feel
Hmm.
like we're not going to get into this today, but I feel like that's a large part of the reason why people will just always consider Kevin Durant better than Steph because he's taller. We know that
Hmm.
there are people who think like this, right? And so I'm not a person who's just like, oh, Paul George is better because he's a wing and he's taller, but it's more about the fact that like people don't appreciate what Paul George did after he left Indiana. He basically
Yeah.
accepted being the number 2 person on all of his teams. It's debatable that second year in OKC, he was
Yeah,
probably
he was always number 2 in usage rate. Never should have been the case in Oklahoma City.
right,
Never should have been the
right.
case.
So he left to be like the number 2 person on these teams, right? He went into a lesser role. And then he was still criticized like he was the number 1 guy when
Yeah.
anything went wrong on the teams, right? And I was just like,
After
Paul George as your number 2 is is incredible.
he's the best number 2 in the NBA.
Yes,
Well, nah, yeah, Anthony Davis or Paul George, one of the two. One of
right.
those two.
But Paul George as a number 1 has taken his teams further than Dame has,
Yeah.
and he's done more with them. So I don't want to hear. And Paul George, in my opinion, is the better shooter. Like, I don't know that people are paying attention, but like he shoots threes at a very high
Yeah.
volume and puts them
You
in the
know,
net
you know the
at a very
stat.
high volume.
You know the stat that I love. The stat that I
What?
love is only Stephen Curry, who has done this 8 times. This will be 9 if he does it this year. Has made 40% or more of his threes, taking 7.5 per game. Steph has 8 as of now. PG has 3. Clay has 3.
Right.
PG has done it the same amount of times as Klay Thompson. That's remarkable.
And that's what I said.
Me.
I mean, we know that because Clay's been out, that's how PG was kind of able to catch him.
Of course.
But the fact that he's even in a conversation with something Clay is doing, that's I'm like, PG is a better shooter than Dame. You people do not know, like, you guys just hate Paul George so much that you let.
He might be. Correct me if there's a player that comes to mind here. He might be the only player, PG, that is mostly hated or mostly disliked after coming back from his legs shattering in half.
Oh my God.
And having a better career in the back half of his career than his first, statistically. I can't think of another player that has like come back from a traumatic injury. Think of like Derrick Rose. It was just an ACL injury, you know.
Right.
Beloved by everybody, and he's not even in the same stratosphere as P. It's kind of weird to me.
It's bizarre to me, and the things that he's hated for are really stupid. It's his personal life. It's for whatever reason, like marriage.
He does get himself into trouble because he talks too much.
He chose. Right, but it's the spouse that he chose. It's some of the things he says, you know, playoff P and coming up with nicknames for himself. And that was a bad shot. I don't care. But these still seem like stupid things to me to just completely not acknowledge, you know, all the he chokes, he sucked. People just ignore the season that he had shoulder surgery. Oh, look how bad he was. Did you guys not? The man had shoulder surgery. Like, are we really going to pretend that his double, he didn't have a real?
It was on
injury?
both shoulders. Double shoulder surgery. It was wild.
It's bizarre to me, the lengths that people will go through. And then even this year when he started off hot, it was like, oh yeah, we'll see how long this lasts. Like, we're gonna start. You know, I'm like,
My favorite response is do it in the playoffs. You just did it. You just did it in the playoffs. And has done it
multiple times.
Of course,
Paul George is a great basketball player. Where people have him, I don't know. Like, to me, he's always been a like top 10 fringe top 10 guy, never lower than top 15 in my opinion. And you know, he doesn't get a lot of the love I think he should. We all know that I'm a Paul George fan. You covered him when he was Indiana and the team, so you know Paul George's history and legacy. I'm glad to see him though now getting more love. I know the Clippers fans appreciate him. And so I want to see more of that for him. I was happy to see him be a number one for a season. It sucks that they lost Kawhi, but I'm like, people are going to see how well Paul George is going to do carrying this team. So I want to move to Clippers really quickly and talk about that. But in terms of Portland, how do you see them like matching up with this version of the Golden State Warriors right now? Like, I can't even say anymore, Shane, because every game, including the Brooklyn Nets, and I was like, these games are going to be close and it's going to be this. And we're just like blowing teams out. And so I'm starting to feel like I'm not even giving my own team enough credit. So, I mean, the Dame and Steph matchups have been sort of epic sometimes in the past. So what are you expecting to see when these two teams match up?
See, I think I'm interested to see. I don't think we've seen a lot of it so far. I know the Clippers switch a lot, and the Clippers have played Portland 3 times already, which is just hilarious. I don't know how that ended up happening. But I want to see the Blazers against like, you know, a switch heavy Warriors defense, or, you know, kind of see how Steph manages those pick and rolls if they're gonna just show and recover, hedge with him and try to, you know, get him back onto his assignment originally. So it's going to be like a good chess match to see how they play defensively, both of those teams. But for me, it's like I'm not going to say the stars cancel each other out because they don't. Steph's obviously like a god compared to Dame, but it's like I want to see, you know, the Norm Powells and the Andrew Wiggins. I want to see the game within the game, how those guys kind of come through, because I think that more likely than not, these type of games where you have two dynamic backcourts, well, you know, if you want to count, you know, Jordan Poole and Steph, or, you know, whatever, but like these dynamic backcourts are going to score their points. Like, you're not going to stop them either way. So it's going to come down to like, okay, open shots for Norm Powell or for Andrew Wiggins, or, you know, attacking the rim. I think Norm Powell, no one really talks about him. I think he's lights out right now. You know, 45% from 3 on moderate volume. I think he needs to get more shots. So it's another thing that Portland has to do is, like, you know, not, let's get Dame off the ball more. Let's give more opportunities to these other guys. So, and obviously, still, it's anytime Draymond plays the Blazers, it's a spectacle. I feel like, am I wrong to think that his best defensive games of his career have come against Portland? I think all of like maybe his top 5 games have been against Portland
The
defensively.
Warriors
It's just
love
remarkable.
they love owning the Blazers. Like that's what they
Yeah.
love to do. So,
And Yusuf
um,
Nurkic is 7 foot tall, and Draymond, obviously, like he's gonna concede some post hooks or some, put back dunks or put back layups or whatever the case is. But for the most part, I mean, his rotations have eaten alive that offensive system for Dame and Yusuf Nurkic on that pick and roll. I mean, Draymond himself blows that up. So I'm curious to
right.
see how that looks with if Iguodala plays that game, which I'm hoping he does. A little flashback to 2019.
Yeah. I don't think it's a coincidence last year when Dame made that statement like, oh, Steph sees now how hard it is to get shots or get, with all his guys out, because they had won the first game and then they were having like another game. It was either a back-to-back. And then that's when Steph came out and dropped 62. Like people don't
Yeah.
think that Steph cares about that stuff, but he is a psycho. Okay. Like I don't think that was a coincidence at all. And so I don't know what it is about Portland, but they revel in playing that team. So I don't know. Hopefully it's a good game. Of course I'm going to pick the Warriors to win it, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping for a good game. I love domination, so I love seeing us dominate everyone. But at the same time, I would like to see a good game. So that's my
Yeah.
thoughts on that. And then we also
And
this is
and,
the
and
go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say another like interesting dynamic that between, I guess it's like a parallel between Golden State and Portland right now is they have their core. Both teams have their core that they've been around. Steph, Dre, Iggy, as of now. Without Clay, that's going to be on the floor. Dame, CJ, Yusuf Nurkic, and such. But there's an influx of young pieces that are expected to be contributors for both teams. I mean, you got obviously got Jordan Poole. A lot of these, Juan when he plays, obviously he hasn't played that much, but you have a lot of people a lot of players that are being put in positions that have huge responsibility. Portland has a lot of them. I mean, Nasir Little is like their wing stopper now. I mean, he's been against Paul George. He's been defending him quite a bit in the 3 times they've played. Larry Nance Jr. has come over, not particularly played well for them, but has had a few bright spots and a few highlight moments. Um, and Tony Snell, he's not young, he's 28, but it's like they have a lot of guys that in theory could really help their defense. It just hasn't worked out yet. So
Hasn't
I,
been put
I, I
together
do
yet.
like the parallels how with Golden State and Portland you have the givens that are going to give you production that of every night, but also the others that are 21 through 25, 26 that you kind of don't know what to expect until it happens.
There's a lot of comps, at least I think within the Warriors fan base, made to like CJ McCollum kind of being like a comp or ceiling for Jordan Poole. What do you think about that?
Mm. Oh my God, that's tough. That's really tough. I haven't thought about that ever. I guess because I'm not that active on Warriors Twitter, I guess. But I
Well, that's
would
fine. I'll give
say
you time to think about it. I don't want to force you into it on the spot. I just
Jordan
wondered.
Jordan Jordan would be a better shooter. He'll be a better shooter. I mean, he's only what 20,
Yeah,
21.
yeah,
I mean, we're not even seeing the dude's dropping 30 on 14 shots right now on some
right.
games. I mean,
He's shooting
CJ
something like
wasn't.
62% from two or
Yeah,
something. He's six
yeah.
four. That's insane.
Is CJ also 6'4"? See what CJ is. CJ is 6'3". I mean, it's definitely a comp that I could see. So Jordan probably could get to the rim. He could probably stand to get to the rim more, even though he's shooting 60% on twos. I feel like he could even get to the rim a little bit more, and
Yeah, I
that
don't
would
know if you
separate
saw
him
that
from CJ.
Andre Iguodala interview where Andre kind of basically said he needs to do that and get more
Yeah,
fouls. So he's been trying
Mhm.
to do that more.
I like that.
Um,
I do like that. Whoever thought of that? It's a pretty good one.
I have to, well, let me see. I think the first person I heard, and I could be lying because I feel like I've seen a few people say it, but I think it's the infamous Urkel.
Oh no, Urkel.
Urkel's a really smart basketball mind. He drives some people crazy because he can be, sort of extreme, but he actually really knows his
Mhm.
stuff. So, okay. And so we also play the Clippers. This is going to be our second matchup with the Clippers, and the first game was close. The first game was close. I think I don't want to be misremembering, but did we have a lead and then the Clippers came back in the game? Is that what happened, or
Yeah.
was it close? Oh,
Y'all
okay, okay.
Golden State was up, I want to say 18, 19 points. Clippers came
Yeah.
back, took the lead by one or two. That's when Steph went absolutely nuclear, and Marcus Morris decided to just not guard the guy from 30 feet, because why would you guard anyone from 30 feet, and yet he splashed it home. So yeah, Golden State took command in the last 2 minutes.
Right. And so, I mean, but the Clippers are playing better now. Reggie is back to, I mean, I think he still had a game here and there, but he's back to at least, shooting the ball better. Um, so what do you think? Because I feel like this is going to be another good close game, probably. I don't know if it'll follow the
Yeah.
same format in terms of us having a big lead and then them, but I think it's going to be a competitive game. And so Ty
It'll
Lue
be a
always
competitive game.
Ty Lue always seems to know how to coach his team versus the Warriors, no matter which
Mhm.
team it is. And so I sometimes give him the coaching edge versus Kerr. I do. So what do you expect to see the second time around?
I was gonna say it could be a competitive game, unless the Clippers decide they don't like these afternoon games. They hate playing in the mid afternoon. They hate it. So
Really?
it's actually
Okay.
early. It's like a 12:30 tip off that day, I believe, on Sunday.
Is that in
So
LA or is that in Golden State?
yeah, LA.
It's in LA. Okay.
I'm going to cover that game. Going to cover that game as well. It's a back to back for the Clippers. I'll be there for
Okay.
Sunday against Golden State and Monday against New Orleans, the horrible Pelicans. But for this matchup, what's kind of a bummer is that Nick Batum is going to miss the first two games against Golden State. He missed the opener with
Oh,
uh,
COVID.
yeah, he missed the opener for personal reasons. He
Right.
just got put into health and safety protocol, which,
Yeah.
as we've been on the podcast, Clippers canceled their shoot around today as I guess a precautionary
Precautionary.
for for COVID concerns. So hopefully there's even games being played by the
Oh
time
no.
yeah, could be bad, but hopefully not. Let's stay optimistic.
Players need to go get the booster, man. Oh my goodness. Okay.
It's wild, and Clippers were 100% vaccinated, so all this is kind of just randomness, but it's
No, I know,
luckily
but
only Batum.
depending on when you
Yeah,
got vaccinated, that 6 month period could be up. I mean, the Warriors were too, but it's about time they should probably go get the booster as well. So,
of
I mean, I'm
course.
just saying
Yeah.
you're seeing the cases pop up all around the league. That's why I'm saying that.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I forgot
But
about
Batum,
Batum.
yeah, he's the only one, or he's not the only one out, I should say. But he's the most important, because I don't believe he would make. I actually know he would not make the same mistakes defensively Marcus Morris would. Now,
Right.
speaking of Morris, he's coming back tonight, so he'll be
Okay.
back on the floor. He's missed the last, I want to say, 11 or 12 games, maybe, yeah, 10, 11, 12 games with right knee condition, or I think left knee conditioning. So he's had some knee concerns to start both this season and last season, and different knees. It's becoming a concern within the
Mm,
Clippers, because the guy's on the other side of 30, and he has 2 more guaranteed years of his contract left. How much can you really rely on him if he's going to be missing time? Now, he played really well in the playoffs to close that out, but that's where he tweaked his knee, or he hurt his knee then. So that was in June, July. He's still trying to get that left knee back. So, I mean, hopefully that he can come back and be the same kind of defender he was. And yeah, we're never concerned, I guess, about the shooting of like Clay. Like when you have a lower leg injury, lower body injury, you're not concerned about the shooting coming back at all. But it's the defensive mobility. And Marcus was already getting up there in age and getting already like he had so many miles on him that he could not stick with these faster guards. Right, he get
Right.
blown by. We even saw a clip from a practice before the season started. Serge Ibaka blew by him off the dribble,
What's
and it's
going on
like
with Surge?
Serge is back as well. I mean, it's Serge is returning with Marcus. He's already played one game with back surgery that he had in June,
He went
like
down to the
during
G League to get in reps, right? And to get
yeah, he
okay.
had after his back surgery in June was ruled out, came back for a couple games this year, played 14 total minutes, decided that his conditioning level was not to where it needed to be. Went down to the G League, dominated for a few games, because they're all kids down there. And he comes back and he looked like he was moving well the other night. So I mean, hopefully for him, I don't think it was an injury concern when he came back from the back injury. It's more so like everything's so
Conditioning.
fast.
Yeah.
Everything's so fast in the NBA, and if you're not on your P's and Q's, you're going to get blitz off the floor. So luckily, I think getting his timing and conditioning back it'll be good. But yeah, the Clippers have been riddled with injuries, just random misses here and there. Not anything major like Kawhi being out, but yeah, so mainly for them, it's availability. PG has been holding down the fort until everyone gets back.
What seed would the Clippers have to be for Paul George to get real consideration for MVP?
I think three.
Okay.
People would say 4 or 5, but no, I just don't believe that, because if you're 4 or 5, Steph is already going to have the number one or number two, whatever it is, and the numbers. KD is going to have the numbers and the number one or two in Brooklyn.
Should
You're
KD
going to
be
have
a
a lot.
candidate with James Harden on his team?
Yeah, he should, especially if everyone's going to denigrate James and say that he hasn't been as good, then you have to kind of,
I
in the
mean,
same
didn't they
breath, say
denigrate
KD.
Steph when KD was on the team and
They
said, "Oh,
did. That's a different question, I
and
guess.
I don't,
But
but I'm just saying, I feel like it's not even a consideration. I don't hear it being discussed like they can't be, MVP because they
I
play
know
together the way
it's
that I
kind of
heard it
wild.
with the Warriors.
Yeah. But for PG, he had, and I don't even think the seeding is the number one thing for him, to be honest. And people would think I'm crazy for that. I think more so it's his games played. It's been a long time since he's played. Not a long time. It's been a few years since he's played. 75 games.
But they're not
Um,
going to be able to rest him a lot, so they don't have that luxury. So
they can't, but it's more so the injury. Last year he had a toe injury that he said the trainers told him would not get better unless he rested a long period of time. You don't have that in the NBA. So if something like that happens again, supposedly it's fully healed after the offseason, but if something like that happens, like they're kind of screwed. They're kind of in bad luck. I mean, you don't have,
yeah,
and if PG's sitting, good luck. I mean, it's Reggie and Terrence Mann holding it
right.
down. Luckily,
Is
PG hasn't
Kawhi
missed a
coming
game yet,
back?
though. I would put money on no.
Okay.
That would be me. From what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing around the team, it seems like the team doesn't want him to return. They want him to be 100%, 110% before he's come back. Seems like he is progressing and already doing a lot of stuff that we haven't even heard about, like behind the scenes, like trying to get ramped up, even get moving and get running and stuff like that. Or they're calling it explosive box jumps is what they're calling it, that he's doing
Okay.
to try to get his strength back. So he's wanting to come back and try to play, but it seems like the team is gonna be on the very cautious side of that. So
Okay.
I would say no. But again, it's November 22nd. We could get to April 15th, or no, that'd be playoff time. We could get to like March 15th, and things could drastically change if the Clippers are third in the West and have a chance to really make a run.
Okay. So with this current roster, assuming everyone's there minus Batum, what should the Warriors be expecting? What do you expect to see?
Mm, I think I expect to see, Warriors fans won't like it because of what they just saw. I do expect to see a lot of aggressive defense on Steph.
I think we'd
Um,
expect that too from Ty Lue. It's just what he does. Two coaches
Yeah.
I hate on the opposing side when we play. Him and Nurse.
And Ty hasn't really thrown out the box and one or triangle and two, like the junk defenses that the Draymond likes to call them. Hasn't really thrown that stuff out. It's been more so like, I guess just encouraging better one-on-one coverage to where you're not letting him through the cracks. I think Terrence Mann did a really phenomenal job in the second half on Steph in that October 21st game. Um, Steph still came through in the end because you're only going to prevent a guy from getting free for so long. Steph has so much energy that even a freak athlete like Terrence Mann or name Eric Bledsoe's a really like good athlete. Even those guys can't really stay with him the entire time, the entire duration of a shot clock, every possession. So I think in the beginning, I just my take. I don't think we'll see Golden State like rattle off this huge run that they did in the beginning of that game. Being at home helped that in the first game, I would say. I think we'll see a more evenly played game this time around. It just comes down to we have no idea what to expect from Serge Ibaka. Like Serge hasn't made his imprint on a game since April, or no, since May.
So he's
So
probably
we
going to choose
haven't.
this game to do so, right? It's a
Yeah,
national
like
TV game.
it is, and it's like he didn't play in that opener against Golden State. He was still recovering. So I do think he's someone that can kind of like not hurt the Warriors defense, but kind of like puncture the soft spots. Like he could knock down some open mid range jumpers, which I think the Warriors are more than happy to concede. They just don't want to give up threes and layups, obviously. He's a really good rebounder. I think someone that could kind of hurt Draymond there, someone that can kind of cause some issues that they didn't have in the first game.
Right.
Ivica Zubac's kind of Ivica Zubac's is great. I love him as a center, but it's more so like his rebounding is kind of it comes and goes. Like he'll forget to box out here, box out there. That's where Draymond really takes advantage of those guys. With Serge, he's been around so long, man. He knows where to be. He's played against this Warriors team as well for many years too. So I think he could be the big X factor in the game.
Okay. What was I going to ask you? Bledsoe, he's been better. I mean, is he up and down still? I know like
Up and down, yeah.
was not playing well. Then he had some games where he's playing well. Is it just like an inconsistent thing so far?
I think I saw you tweet one day like believing in a team with Eric Bledsoe
Me?
is not yeah, I believe
No,
I think I
don't
saw
think
you
that's
tweet that.
me. I don't think that's not ringing a bell, but
Okay, I will try to freezing cold takes you and find it.
I'm
I'll
not saying that
try
I've
to
never
find it.
said anything about Eric Bledsoe. I'm not saying that I don't know. I'm not gonna swear by it, but
It started off really rough with Eric. More so because I think well, I know he thinks he's a better shooter than what he is. So when the ball swings to him, you can kind of get in that zone of I'll take the open shot, which you should take the open shot more often than not. But if you have the opportunity to drive, if defenses are kind of sagging back, and you know that you can beat player X off the dribble, he's always best when his head's down. He's going to the rim, drawing two defenders. It's all about drawing two defenders, and then drive, kick, swing to your open shooters.
right,
Which he plays a lot. He's gotten to where Ty Lue will stagger him and Reggie to
mm-hmm.
where one of those guys will be in with the bench unit at all times. And to be honest, the Clippers look pretty good if Bledsoe's out there with shooters like Luke Kennard,
Right.
who's absolutely, I'm sure we would have got to him, but absolutely the biggest like bright spot outside of PG's dominance is Luke Kennard proving that he's worth that contract that he got. Kind of like shoving that in everyone's face when they laughed at the Clippers for it. But Bledsoe's good when he's doing all that. When he's just asked to shoot or, I guess just be there spacing, it looks crappy because it is.
I feel like the Warriors will treat him like they do Russ and let him shoot, and they're
They
just probably
should.
gonna sag off him. Yeah, I do think they'll do that. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking for another good game. I've always said like with the Clippers, I feel like They're a little bit interesting because they can go small, and
If they have their guys, if they have Marcus Morris, which they will, Batum would be even more helpful. Like those guys can play center.
right, and they're a pretty good shooting team, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so Warriors usually use their counter of going small against teams to counter, if teams are big or just to counter them.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a perfect counter for the Clippers, and that's why I find it to be an interesting
Yeah.
matchup.
If you want not like a hot take, I guess, but a take I have is that I believe in the playoffs, if you told me Kawhi was coming back, I think Warriors small ball, what's that, Steph, Clay, Wiggins, Draymond, and
Dre.
Iggy, is that what that would be
I'm not sure. Probably
to
Andre,
close it
but I,
out?
I I think depending on the matchup or who, I could see times where you have Otto in there instead of
Okay.
Andre. I think it could vary, I guess is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Draymond at center lineups. If you told me that was going against Kawhi, Reggie, PG, Marcus, and Nick Batum, or whatever configuration you want, whether it's Luke Kennard in there, but anyway, Marcus Morris, Nick Batum at center. I think that matchup would be the best possible basketball matchup because it would just have the perfect collection of offensive and defensive euphoria. It'd be awesome to see, a
And
Kawhi
high
PG
IQ
led.
guys.
Absolutely. I mean, Nick Batum versus Draymond to see who could kind of outclass each other. Uh, Kawhi and PG switching off on Steph if necessary, which would be necessary. Reggie would be the only weak link of that defensive lineup. That would be the best matchup to have. It's just you can't really expect Kawhi to come back in March, April and already be
Right.
there at that level. So it's really hard to kind of project. But that's my favorite hypothetical.
I did tweet not so long ago that like Nick Batum is like the Warriors Andre Iguodala in terms of his role and importance to the team. And some person got really mad at me and thought I was like disrespecting Andre. I don't know why, but I think Batum is like a really high IQ
Mm.
guy, reliable, steady on defense. Like you can just count on him out there, and older vet. I, I look at him like what he does for the Clippers. They're different, but in terms of what his role is to the Clippers, I look at him as like their Andre Iguodala. I love Nick
Yeah.
Batum. We tried to pick him up, so he was one of our free agent
Yeah.
targets. It doesn't surprise me that he stayed with the Clippers, but I think he's such an asset for them to have. So yeah, I like that Clippers team. I'm not actually from the Bay Area, so I don't have the disdain for LA teams that NorCal SoCal thing like rivalries. So obviously I want my team to win and I don't want the Clippers beating us. But when they're not playing the Warriors, I really do like that Clippers team. And I'm enjoying them so far this season. So I'm sure it's fun for you to cover
Yeah.
them.
It definitely is, and it's great when you see that you peel back the layers and see the type of coach Ty Lue is. Not one player I've ever seen. I guess Kyrie maybe didn't really vibe with him, but every player loves the guy. I mean, it's to where I'm not sure I've seen this before, but like Marcus Morris is like really good friends, like best friends with Ty Lue. Like I don't know, I don't know how that turned out to be, but it's like it's not even a coach player relationship. It's like they're all his buds, and that's not something you see. I mean, I know you don't see that with Steve Kerr and the Warriors. I know you don't see that with Frank Vogel and the Lakers. Like it's just it seems like a good chord where they all trust each other, and that's really the reason they came back from multiple 0-2 deficits. It should have been
Right.
three straight 0-2 deficits they came back from. And
Right.
really, like they shouldn't have lost to Phoenix in the first place. They just made a few bad errors in game two.
Right.
But
Right.
you know,
Right. Right. No, yeah. Listen, Shane, this has been wonderful. I've kept you for a really long time, longer than I said it would be, but I love talking basketball with you, as you know. So we are going to do, I don't know, I definitely need to have you back on. We've talked about this. I don't know if it's going to be before All-Star break, but offline, I'm going to pick your head some more about those All-Star picks, but we won't, we
it's
won't, we
always
won't do
fun.
we won't do the prediction right now because we've been going for a long time, but I just want to thank you again for being on today. What is the latest that you're working on or that you've put out or that people should look out for? Because Shane's writing is good. He does some really great work, guys. So you should check him out. What should they be looking out for?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Nat. I've used the first few weeks of the season to kind of just watch everything, to kind of digest it. I feel like there was a lot of player movement that it's hard to really start writing about, small sample sizes stuff right now, unless you're just doing game stories. But currently, I'm kind of just diving into Phoenix. I might write something about them for well, I can't even say tomorrow because who knows when people are listening to this, but it might be out before Thanksgiving. And then also probably gonna write about Steph soon. Write about Steph and the his off ball magic that he does. So I'll have some stuff. I'll have some stuff at Forbes Sports. That's where I write. You can follow me at Young NBA on Twitter. Just simple. People say I'm young NBA young boy, which is some rapper that I've never heard of, but I don't know. That's what people confuse me with, which is funny.
Easy to know that it's not Shane because Shane's white. Okay, guys. So
yeah, one click before, and they tag me in it. It's like one click, they can see that I'm not remotely the same. But if you if you find yourself in the Bay the same time I'm there, which I don't know when I'll be there, might be January. I know you're going to that Jazz game in mid-January or early January as well, so I might be up there. But yeah, for me, just gonna be in LA this coming weekend. I'm gonna get to LA on Saturday for a back-to-back on Sunday, Monday, and then probably come back.
Nice. Well, we'll be looking forward to your coverage, to your Forbes pieces. Shane, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us so much to think about, your basketball knowledge. It's great. I love it. I love always speaking to you about this game that we both love to follow and discuss. So you guys, please follow Shane if you're not already. Really, really great writer and content creator. You won't regret it. Also, if you are listening in and you're not already, please follow the All Nat Pod. It's available on most streaming platforms. Follow it. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to it. Rate me, review me with 5 stars only. That's the only thing I'll accept. Leave me some comments, give me some feedback, whether it's on YouTube or wherever, platform you're listening on. Please do. I love to hear from you. I like to get better, and I really appreciate your support of the show. Also, Shane appreciates that support when you follow him as well and check out his writing. So please do that as well, and enjoy your holiday that's coming up, if you celebrate it or not. Just enjoy time with your family and whatever you do. Until next time, guys, take care.